Well, Bob, I feel like I know you often do experiments with your own nutrition. Over all the years, I've, learned of some things that you've tinkered with and tried, but I don't know that I've ever asked you or recall whether you've dabbled in this kind of experiment, which is the carnivore diet. So I was
Oh,
curious, do you have personal experience?
I do not. And I've done very low carbohydrates, like almost borderline ketogenic. But I've always included at least, 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates. Never ever have done carnivore, and I could probably tell you why I've never done that. It
Yeah.
might be a little bit longer discussion, but I can maybe loop that into the discussion, but more for health purposes,
Hmm.
specifically metabolic health. Right now,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to go on with this because, yes, listeners, we are talking about the carnivore diet. Should you follow the carnivore diet? Let's break it up. What is the carnivore diet, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you haven't heard what it is yet, I mean, I kind of feel like you've probably been living under a rock, and that's cool. Like that's totally cool too, right? But what is the carnivore diet, D?
Well, it's basically all animal foods, right? No,
Yep.
so I think anything and everything goes as long as it's more animal food and we're not doing the plants.
Yeah. And there's a
So
limit
a lot
on
of,
dairy just because the carbohydrates in like milk and
yeah,
yogurt and stuff. But
yeah,
yeah, like cheese is okay. Like yeah, so basically it's like zero carbohydrates, all animal focused, right?
hmm,
So
hmm,
no plants whatsoever. Which
yes.
is kind of interesting. So anyway, we'll get into this. I feel
Okay.
like, with our conversation. But yeah, that's I think it's very simple in terms of what it is. Like when you
Yeah,
hear ketogenic, you're like, well, what is that? Like
yeah,
ketogenic has a lot more moving parts, right? Carnivore is like probably one of the easiest ones you're going to do. And it's kind of like vegan. Vegan. Okay, well, it's no animal products. So it's kind of the exact opposite of each other, right? So I feel from
right.
a conceptual standpoint, it's easy to grasp or get your hands around like, oh, I understand what carnivore is. It's all animal based, zero carbohydrates.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so I've actually had a few athletes try it. Not so much under my recommendations, but they've tried it because they've tried it and they've come to me, and then we've done things to get them a little bit more, let's just say, balanced, right? So have you had any experience with your athletes doing carnivore?
No, I know of one of my athletes whose spouse was doing
Hmm.
carnivore.
Yeah.
But beyond that, Bob, it is not something that I've honestly come across or recommended for
Yeah.
anyone. I mean, but there is utility, and we can talk about maybe the context for, the reasons why you might want to implement
Hmm.
some of this or not. I suppose pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
That's always
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and I have not dabbled in the carnivore diet
Yeah.
myself. I'm just chuckling because I think about what I eat day to day and I start to tear up thinking about going carnivore.
Really? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I know, well, it's also like what is the intention,
Mm.
reason, purpose behind it?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
and if we kind of start with my personal example, the reason why I haven't done this yet, because I've done a lot of dietary interventions, experiments, and with blood work, and I've got family history of a lot of high blood lipids, and really, from a cholesterol standpoint, cardiovascular standpoint, horrible numbers, right? So
mhm,
I'm kind of careful with this stuff, but like I've noticed when I've done more of my high carbohydrate, low fats, kind of low to moderate protein, let's call it, my blood lipids obviously act very differently than when I was on my very low carbohydrate, high fat. Now, with me personally, I know because of also genetic testing and a few other tests that when I do increase my saturated fat, my blood lipids really go crazy, and not a good kind of crazy, right? So it's from
yeah,
a disease prevention standpoint, a carnivore diet for me would not make sense. Now, I might feel great, I might have tons of energy, blood sugar optimization, I might get really lean, right? But from a health perspective, that's kind of what tips my scale at this point in my age, right? We're both at our fifth level of in our aging, so that kind of makes more sense to me than, oh, how do I look, right? So
yeah,
that's why I haven't done that deep dive, even though I do support some of the pros. There are some cons too, but for me, and this is where you were talking about putting it in context, I think every single person needs to put it in context and not just try it because hey, someone looks ripped or shredded or they lost 20 pounds or whatever it is, and you can relate to that, really like, which I stress all my athletes do, like, hey, if you're thinking about a significant change in your nutrition, please let's get some testing done first to see where you're at. And then and only then can we actually do this experiment, because then you don't,
Yeah.
like, you can't base it just all on subjective data. Like if I go on carnivore 4 weeks later, you say, hey Bob, how do you feel? I'm probably going to say, God, I feel great, right? But then you have to say, well, what are your blood markers, right? What is going on inside your body? Without that testing, I wouldn't be able to answer you. So I could actually be increasing my risk for certain diseases,
For
or
sure.
decreasing, right? But for me, it would
Yeah.
be increasing because I've got that data, like I know me, right? Because I've done the
Yeah.
testing over and over and over again. Okay, so that's the context of why I will not do it. It's not that I don't think, I don't poo-poo it. I just, for me, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and then as athletes, just thinking about, and we've touched on this in some other episodes. I mean, our energy needs are different than someone who's
Yeah,
sedentary or less
totally.
active. And so, just the same as with vegan or any other, restricted plan or plan that removes a whole set of foods, is like, where do your calories come from?
Yeah.
How are we going to get enough? But as athletes in the carnivore diet perspective, we're essentially, as you noted, Bob, we're removing all carbs
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty
It's
much.
a zero carb.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
how does our body adapt to do the work that we want to do in our training? And if we're competing,
Right.
that part, how are we meeting our needs? And ultimately, are we meeting those goals as athletes? And so I think
Yeah.
this is where carnivore diet, for the majority of people, is probably more risk than reward.
Yeah. And it's,
But
I will say that I've actually done a few metabolic efficiency tests on ketogenic diet athletes. So those who
yeah.
are following keto, and crazy fat burning, like amazing through the roof, like you would expect. But when we got to faster and higher intensities,
Hmm.
they just stop, right? And that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? You don't have a lot of carbohydrates on board, so that's going to be your limiting factor. So
Hmm.
depending on what you're training for, you kind of have to match that too, right? So if I'm going to do
Yeah.
a lot of higher intensity, high rocks, Spartan racing, CrossFit kind of thing, I mean, I don't know if carnivore is really going to be a good thing to supply energy. Like we're talking about energy right now, right?
Yeah.
Um, I also don't know if it'd be a good thing for endurance training. I mean, it could be, but what if you're trail running? Like, what if you go up a hill
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa,
I
right?
know.
You're not staying in zone one or zone two the whole time. You need some carbs for that higher intensity exercise, and that's what we're saying about the whole context thing, right? So
Yeah.
I guess context number one is, are you what, as an active, athlete, fitness goer, what are you doing, right? Do you
Yeah.
need carbohydrates to supply a higher energy demand, or do you not, right? Because I
Hmm.
feel like a lot of people that I've heard of doing carnivore are not, like, they're active, but they're walking, they're doing like more activities of daily living, not really stressing their body, higher heart rates, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah.
training for particular events. Now, of course, I've seen some athletes that do carnivore and they could be very successful. I just question, are they really 100% on carnivore or not?
I know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, short term versus long term. Like if we cut out a whole bunch of calories, we can change body composition and
Hmm.
maybe feel good in the beginning, the first 6 months or whatever. But what's happening that you may not see in the mirror,
Yeah.
like your vitamin deficiencies occurring
Yes.
and some of those other
Yes.
things, more risk for injury at some point here in the timeline. That just speaks to what are we, like you said, context. What are we trying to fix or make better? Not just the subjective side, but having objective data as
Yeah.
well and
Yeah.
making this decision.
Well, and some, as we get into more of the pros and cons, I think one of the things that just jumps out at me is you better like eating meat. I mean, honestly,
Oh,
like,
well, that's a good
because,
point.
and I mean, because if you don't, sorry, it's not going to work
I,
out, right? But
yeah, I
you
mean, you
also
can only
have,
eat so many eggs
I
and
know, right? That's what I'm thinking, like eggs and steak. I
exactly.
mean, granted, there are a lot of animal protein sources, right? But I don't know. I'm thinking practically. One, you have to, like, enjoy eating those foods. Two, you have to go to the store. Like, you better get like a Costco membership or something, right? Because,
Yeah.
and you better have a lot of freezer space, right? Because, and you have to have time to cook this. And, hopefully you know how to prepare it, or if not, you're going to have to
Yeah.
figure that out, spice it up a little bit and everything. But, and then there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying, that's also a commitment in time, in storage, in financial allocation for where your dollar goes for groceries. Now, there are some pros to this also, which we'll get into. But I just want to put that out there. Like, you better like eating meat.
That investment financially, Bob, and then thinking of the supplementation to get our
Oh, right,
micros because
right.
we cannot exist without our essential, our vitamins, minerals,
Hmm.
right? So you have to supplement.
Yeah, you
So
absolutely
that
do.
is
Yeah,
another investment.
yeah.
And yeah, so
It's actually a good point. Like, you can, a lot of the argument for with carnivores, oh, well, you can make certain vitamins and minerals in your body.
yeah,
Well, you
yeah,
can, yeah, but the argument is it's not enough. Like, it's not enough for the
right.
processes, these all the metabolic processes that we need. So, yeah, I forgot about that one. Like, so add a few more dollars per month for some supplements.
Yes, and then as athletes, like, what about your magnesium and your vitamin C,
Yeah,
all that stuff? But
right,
so
right.
those are some things. Yeah. I have seen a few cases, Bob. Well, I'm just thinking of short term.
Mm,
It's kind of like when we've talked about FODMAP before, like if I'm having gut issues, for example, I'm going to put a strategy or intervention in place to see what relief or change I experience. Of course, having the blood work and all that to know those other objective
yeah,
metrics or a stool sample and that assessment and analysis.
yeah,
But if we're doing carnivore or carnivore-ish
yeah,
for a 2 week window, what do we benefit from and what do we see? And timing that in the right, like we wouldn't do that the week of a race or
right.
something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
what do we feel as a result? And that can just give some clues.
yeah,
Of course, if we're having, medical, clinical issues, we should consult with a physician, as always. But this could be a dietary strategy that is put in
right.
place for a short term, just to maybe uncover or, magnifying glass on a couple things.
No, it's very true. And
So,
you even brought up FODMAP, which we talked about in a previous episode. But FODMAP is all about reducing certain carbohydrates that are
mhm,
fermenting a little bit more in your gut. And when we do that with athletes, follow a low FODMAP diet, I mean, what are we looking at? We're looking at protein,
yeah,
right? So it's
yeah,
not that we're putting them on carnivore, but we see that that's where we lean to make sure that they're staying full and they get the protein needs, obviously. But yeah, there's definitely a time and a place. I mean, I
hmm,
totally get that. I mean, I think we can kind of pick this apart. We kind of talked about the financial, you're going to have to like animal-based products, obviously. I think, another one would be maybe just even the social. I hear that
mm,
a lot and it's not even
yeah,
carnivore specific, but people going out with friends or
yeah,
holidays or whatever, and they kind of feel alienated sometimes. And it
yeah,
could be carnivore, it could be keto, it could be high carb, low, like it could be anything, right? I'm not doing alcohol, I'm not doing sweets, and you kind of feel like you're in this little bubble. But that to me, I've heard from other people like, hey, that's kind of difficult when I go out with friends because I'm not ordering a salad, I'm not ordering, and they're looking at me kind of funny, and you know what I mean. So that
yeah.
it's probably not a high thing on the list, but I think it's something to still consider.
That's a really good point, is the reality.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, yeah, yeah,
And also, I don't think I'm gonna carry, like, a big steak on the trail for my
right, right,
trail snacks, Bob.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, a little jerky or something now and then, but I
yeah,
cannot
yeah.
envision. But so anyways, those are some other considerations.
I kind of feel like when we're talking about this, it almost just begs both of us doing an experiment. But let's
I know, I
let's
was
let's
thinking
save that
that.
for the end.
Okay, okay.
Okay, here's one thing I did want to bring up as a potential, because it's N of one. Not that I've done carnivore as I mentioned, but I did pretty low carb, high fat, and I noticed my digestive system, bowel movement specifically, decreased significantly. I did not have as much, movement going on, and I felt bloated a lot
Yeah,
because I was not having regular bowel movements like I normally do on my just normal, metabolic efficiency plan. So I did want to bring that up because I have heard that from other ketogenic diet athletes before, but carnivore I think would accentuate that even more so, depending on how much fat you had in there too. But I just want to bring that because listen, there's not, I mean, where's the fiber, right? I
yeah.
mean, Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that because sometimes people love that, not having that, that many bowel movements,
Hmm.
and but having 1 to 3 bowel movements a day is pretty normal, and that was a significant shift
Yeah.
for me that kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, you really have to pay attention to your fluid intake, I
Oh
imagine, with
yes,
carnivore
yes.
and
I-
not that we don't normally,
Yep,
but
yep,
just like without that fiber content in the daily plan, how are we
yeah,
moving the bowels? That's
yeah.
not good to let stuff sit in the intestinal tract.
Exactly.
So
What
got
other
to be
things? What are
diligent.
other pros and cons? I'm trying to think. I guess the pro is, people do usually lose weight on this and they do lose body fat. I don't know if that's direct, 100%
Yeah.
correlated with this, obviously. But I mean if you're talking about improving metabolic efficiency, well, yeah, I mean, this is
Yeah,
definitely
but you
going to
won't
do
be
it.
able to sprint down the street
That's true.
when that bear is chasing you or whatever. Oh, that's my neighborhood.
That's your neighborhood,
But
not, yeah, yeah. No, it's
so
a valid point, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm just thinking heart health could be a problem, but I know some that purport they
yeah,
have these excellent markers. Of course,
yeah.
the long-term data is where we need to look as well. So
Right,
yeah, that
right.
just speaks to getting your blood work done before
Yeah,
you make a decision like this.
yeah. Well, and genetics too. I think really
Yeah,
we hound on
genetics.
people. I mean, genetics is a
Yeah.
one and done test. It's so easy to do. So I would definitely do
Hmm.
that before doing something as drastic as
Yeah.
this of a dietary
Yeah.
change.
And then, not to be broken record, Bob, but just,
Yeah.
yeah, meeting our calorie needs. So we may lose weight, change
Hmm.
body composition. That's because we just cut out a whole bunch of foods.
Yeah.
But are we thriving?
Mm.
So, just a rhetorical question,
Yeah. Well, here's a good example of this, Dee. I don't know if you follow Dr. Paul Saladino at
I
all.
wondered if you were going to bring him up.
Yeah, yeah. And I would love
Yeah.
to get him on the podcast,
Oh,
by the way.
yeah.
So, Paul, if you're listening, I doubt you're listening. You have no idea who we are. But hey, if anyone knows Paul Saladino, have him reach out, or we'll reach out to him too. Actually, I have in the past. I didn't hear back from him, but
Okay, yeah.
it's kind of fascinating because of his, like, I just love following people's journey sometimes. And his journey was, he went all carnivore to start with, and
Yeah.
his body was not jiving with that. It wasn't liking it for many reasons. So he did introduce, different fruits, like raw honey, raw milk, those kind of things, because what he found was he was thriving better when he did have certain carbohydrates in addition to his very good meat based diet, right? So
Yeah.
I do want to bring that up because I kind of feel like these days, D, it's really not the all or none. I think people are finally getting to the point where we have individual fingerprints, we have individual genetics. We do need individual nutrition strategies to follow. It's
Mhm.
not the all or one or even a diet anymore. It's bits and pieces. I've been saying this for years, right? You look at
Yeah.
all these diets, you can take really solid evidence-based strategies from each one and put it together. But at the end of the day, it has to be right for your genetic needs, for your metabolic needs, for your longevity needs.
Right.
So I just think it's kind of fun, fascinating to follow these guys, girls.
Yeah. Well, to answer the question, how do we phrase this, Bob?
Should you
It
follow a
is,
carnivore diet?
yeah, or is it good for you?
Oh, okay,
How,
okay.
so in summary, do you want to give your take on that?
Yeah, I think, let me answer the first one. Now I think because I feel like I want to answer both those questions. Should you follow a carnivore diet? Maybe, but I don't know. Like, because we would need to, like, really, I would need to
Yeah.
see blood work. I would need to see test data first, right? And I actually do that with I just had an athlete come to me and say, "Hey, want to work with you. I'm having a problem losing weight. I'm this ill, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Hey, great. Let me see any of the test data you have first because I want to see what you've tried to uncover first, see what we're working with." So should everyone? Not quite sure, but have some testing done first. Is it? So what was the second one? Is a carnivore is
Well, is it
following?
good for you?
Oh,
I mean, that kind of goes with what you're saying.
yeah. You know
Maybe,
how
but
I
what are,
feel about the whole good and bad thing.
I
I
know
feel
that's
that
true.
parts
Yeah.
of a carnivore diet could be extremely beneficial for some people. I also feel that parts of it could be extremely detrimental for some people.
Yeah.
And I can't even classify who those are until I would actually see the test results first.
Yeah.
We're talking active individuals. We're not talking obese,
True.
clinical based, right? I feel like there could be a really good argument for something like this in a clinical based obesity model.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hands down. Right.
For
Yeah.
some, yeah, some people,
Yeah.
some of the time, some
Yeah.
cases. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. But for active individuals, everyone that's listening to our podcast, listen, I don't think you just jump onto the ship with both feet and you're just, you're like, hey, right here I am. I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of steps to do before answering that question. But now I'm going to turn it on to you.
Well, I was trying to think of a way to say it differently. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to just echo you, but what you said. Yeah, what
Yeah.
you said. But yeah, I'm not anti carnivore black and white. But
Yeah.
I would say if my life depended on it, I probably wouldn't vote for this to be the first
Okay.
step.
Okay.
But again, I have to know who you are, what you're dealing with, what
Yeah.
you've done, all
Yeah.
that stuff. So I
Right.
think I think maybe this is the other way to phrase it. Anyone that's telling you to do carnivore, that's not looking at your blood work, that's not doing a full assessment,
Yes.
that's promising you all these magical results, short and long term, maybe pause
Yep.
and look for a second opinion.
So is it safe to say, Dee, that our listeners cannot and will not be expecting a book that is published by both of us that is entitled The Carnivore Diet for Athletes?
I could bet some money on that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But here's another question for you. So if we were to say, well, because our listeners are like, hey, try it and get back to us.
yeah,
I've told everyone I will not because I know my markers, I know my tests, I know what it would do to my body because I've gotten very close to this kind of quote unquote diet and I see the metabolic consequences it has. I
yeah.
can't do that because of my genetics and because, mom and dad, grandma, grandpa. My question to you is, would you try something like this, Dee, as an
I
experiment?
mean, I would try it, Bob,
Yeah.
probably more for the body composition angle, but
Okay.
the problem is I'm not wanting to have that kind of sustainable. That's not sustainable for me.
Right,
I
right,
like my vegetables. So, I mean, so then it's like, well, what for? Just to see that I lost 3 pounds just
right.
because I created a calorie deficit. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So I don't know that this would be in my top 5 experiments coming up.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of my thinking is, yeah, I wouldn't plan to keep that sort
Okay.
of dietary regimen
Yeah.
in my future. So I
I
don't
mean, and
know.
it doesn't seem like you have an initial why. Like
Yeah,
why
I
would I really
don't.
need to do it? Like nothing's really pushing the needle like, oh, I
Yeah,
have, right? Aside from
yeah.
like if I were to do it, which again I've told you why I will not do it, but I would probably do it for a week or two just to see how I feel, right? And just
Yeah,
to
that,
report subjective things, right? But
yeah.
because I have so much objective data on myself with different dietary regimens and one that is close to
Hmm.
this, I don't feel like reporting a subjective is even important at this point, right? Because
Yeah,
it would be
yeah.
so close to the low carb, high fat thing I did for months. I did that for what 3 or 4 months, right? So
Right.
I feel like, yeah, been there, done that. I know how it's gonna relate in my body.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, for now,
But
we won't put this in our top to do
not top to
experiments.
do, but I think what's really interesting because we work with a lot of different athletes, right? I think if we can encourage everyone to go over to our Patreon account, patreon.com/ISN podcast, join our community. We have a free community. We have two paid communities. You guys know that because we don't take any sponsors on our podcast. We want to remain very non-biased. So we do have a couple paid communities. If you want to help us out, help the podcast, extend the lifespan of it. It helps us just get by giving us a couple bucks a month if you want to. If you don't want to, cool. We have a free community, but here's the thing I want to say. At least join our free community and tell us if you've done or tried the carnivore diet, like
Yeah,
full on carnivore diet before. And what effects did you have, be it subjective or objective? Like if you've had testing done with it, even if it's just subjective, like, hey, felt great,
yeah,
hey, didn't feel great. We would love to interact with you in our community because this helps everybody, right? It helps us understand what other people are doing out there. But there's also always some anomalies, aren't there, Dee, with people with
yeah.
trying different things, even if it's full vegan or full carnivore. I'm always surprised by how well, or maybe even not well, some of these work for some people. So
Yeah.
we would love to hear your experiences and your feedback on this.
Good. And I look forward to hearing from y'all over in our Patreon what your experience is. It really is important to share that and we learn from each other. So that's what we're all about is the real life experience as well. All right, Bob. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed this conversation. And geez, we've got a lot of good stuff coming up for you. So don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. And if you are, we thank you so much for your listenership. And we will catch you on our next episode.